After dinner, we're going to go walk around at the park for about 45 minutes to an hour. We're going to take a family walk. Just these small things to get students active and away from gadgets and away from devices can be something that really helps build a conversation, but also being in a different environment allows them to have different ways that they respond.
You will see these examples of what friendships are supposed to look like. And then in reality, there's conflict in friendship. There's like all these other things, right? And I would say, yeah. So number one, you got to be the friend that you're looking for. Number two, you got to learn how to manage healthy conflict.
Welcome to the Generation Youth Podcast. I am your host, James McLamb, and I'm here with some new friends, some guys at Noble Sheep, and we're going to define what that means in just a minute. How are you doing, guys?
Oh, I'm feeling powered up. Powered up.
Well, I'm excited to have you guys with us. Listen, we just got to know each other recently. A mutual friend of ours has connected us, someone I have a great deal of respect for, Brittany Richmond. She connected us recently, and immediately when we got together in our conversation, I knew we were going to hit it off. Yeah. So I'm excited for our time together. I'm excited for what we can do in the future together. But before we get started and dive into what your passion is, what your mission is, and how you are there to transform young people's lives, let's introduce yourself to the audience, because our audience would love to learn a little bit about you. They get tired of James talking. They want to hear from you. So if you guys wouldn't mind taking a little bit of time and introducing yourselves, go ahead.
Absolutely. But real quick, James, I want to rewind because Brittany, we want to give her a shout out as well. She has a nickname, but she goes by B Money. And so not many people know that. It's a shout out to you, B Money. Thank you so much for connecting us with James.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, B Money is officially connected us. And my name is Asley. This is my twin brother, Jose Alvarez. Together we are Noble Sheep. I'm Noble, he's Sheep. You can tell by how he looks and how I look. But anyway, the reason why we are here is because we have one mission in mind, and that is to inspire students to be great leaders. How do we do that? We do that on the stage, but we also do that off the stage. We do that in front of 500 students. We also do it in front of 10 students. And so regardless of wherever the audience size is, our goal and impact and energy remains the same. Because if we're in front of you, it's guaranteed. Not only are we going to empower you, but, God, I'm so fired up. Not only are we going to empower you, but we also hopefully are going to enlighten you to make some changes in your life that will not only benefit you, but also benefit the people around you.
It's funny what you're doing with the energy that you're bringing to explaining who you are. Because after we first met, I was teaching our youth life certification class, and we were talking about getting your marketing pitch ready and being able to have it down pat so that it excites people. I said, well, let me tell you about two guys that I talked to today, and they've got it down. So I was sharing your story just several hours after we met. So you guys are located in Gainesville, right? Gainesville, Florida.
Home of the Florida Gators. For all of you people watching, especially Georgia and Alabama fans, we're coming for you, okay? Tennessee, all you SEC people, Gainesville is on the come up.
I don't know that I would go with that one right now. I don't know that those days are happening right now, but that's neither here nor there. So how did you guys meet and find out that you had this passion, dare I say even a calling on your lives to impact positively the emerging generations?
Yeah.
So for sure. So you want to tell?
Well, we have two versions of the story. I don't know if you want to hear version number one or the real version. I'm gonna start.
Let's just go with it.
I'll start with version number one. So right after college, right after I graduated with my bachelor's degree from the University of Florida, I ended up getting a job with the university, working with the community and helping at-risk youth. Mm-hmm. Well, I ended up showing up to this work meeting and in collaboration with this nonprofit organization in town that was also working with youth. And I walked into this conference room and there was only one person sitting there so far. He actually showed up early. And as I walked in, like the roof opened.
Come on.
And like heaven just started like glowing on top of this gentleman. And there was a halo on top of him.
Wow.
At the ending of the conference room table.
Powerful.
And to my disbelief, it ended up being this
Wow,
guy
yes.
right here.
And you can clearly see my halo. You see the light on top of my head right now. For those of you that are watching,
I thought he was going to say, and that guy walked away, and you were standing behind him, and then they got
And
Yes.
Asley always says that is Jose's first time ever meeting an angel in his
yes,
life.
yes, he has.
But I will say that partially is true because he has been a true blessing in my life. Right after I graduated from college, I was really involved, and I've always been in leadership positions since I was really in the 9th grade, and positions I never sought after. And I knew a lot of people. God really gave me the opportunity to influence a lot of people. But I always say that by my senior year in college, I realized I didn't have true friends. And I remember one day I started praying, and I just said, God, I just need a friend, just one true friend, somebody that not only is going to ask me about my successes, but is really going to ask me who I am outside of my successes. And I always say, I prayed for a friend, but God gave me a brother, and the rest has been history. That work meeting that we had led to us having lunch together, led to us now for the last 8 years going on walks at 5 o'clock in the morning every single Sunday.
I need to meet that guy. Who are you talking about? Clearly he's talking about me, folks. But Jose and I, the way we, like he was saying, the way we merged together was through our advocacy for students. And so he was a big advocate for students, making sure that they were getting their academics in order, making sure that families had resources that they needed to thrive. And so he was just worried about the whole student, making sure that they were ready to be successful. I was also doing the same as a case manager. So I would work one-on-one with students in middle school and high school to make sure that they had everything they needed to thrive. And so clearly through those objectives, Jose and I were able to sync. And then from our passion, that's how we kind of knew that we had something going. But then that passion turned into a friendship, that friendship turned into a brotherhood, and that brotherhood turned into a business idea that we had to be able to bring this power up message to the masses. And here we are today.
Wow. Well, what is it about the condition of young people today that drives you to do what you do? What is it what are the issues and problems that you're seeing that you feel God has uniquely put you in a position to help them with?
That's good. That's good. I think for me, a big thing is we often talk about how in middle school and high school, people try to pretend to be somebody else to fit in. Okay. And so usually they try to figure out, man, what do people like and how can I be that person so I don't get bullied or I don't get shamed or I'm not the outcast? Because that was what my story included. I spent a lot of time trying to impress people rather than trying to really figure out who I am and why I'm called to be on this earth. So that led me into a lot of trouble. It also led me to a lot of heartache and pain, both emotionally and mentally. And as we talk with the students one-on-one and as we share our stories, we have a lot of students come up to us that share that that's exactly what they're going through right now. And so it's almost like a crisis. They have a lot of students may be feeling an emotional crisis, not being able to connect with people that they love or friends around or people in general. You know, they could be around a whole bunch of people, but they still feel lonely. And others are trying to separate their identity from their achievement. And so we focus a lot about how success is going to be in your activity, but significance is going to be in who you become, the actual person. After you achieve all these things, can you look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of who you are and how you got there behind the scenes when nobody was looking?
So how are y'all doing that? How are you helping youth? Well, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's one of the biggest issues that are facing youth all day. I mean, our audience has heard me say this before. We interviewed 2,500 young people, found the answers to the question, hey, what's the biggest problem facing your generation? And when we categorize the answers, self-image was the biggest category. It's the one that almost none of those 2,500 said, self-image is what I struggle with. They, they would say, hey, I'm trying to pretend to be something. I feel like a failure. I feel like this. I don't fit in. Who am I? I don't know what's going on. So they struggle with this. What are you guys doing to help them realize what their potential is? And how do parents, if you were advising parents, how can they do it? So let's first tackle what are you doing, and then let's throw some advice up to some parents who've got a 12-year-old girl that has no idea, what she's going to be from day to day.
Yeah, well, it's pretty evident by now that faith is really big for Asley and I, and it's really the foundation of our business. And one of the things that we believe and walk by is the scripture that says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So the very first thing that we do on stage is just share our stories. Our stories of overcoming. I always said I'm an overcomer. I overcome things so that other people can walk right over them. And that started with my siblings, me being the first in my family to graduate from high school, the first in my family to go to college, the first in my family to graduate from college. And I was able to set that path for people like my siblings and others who were aspiring to get to where I'm at today. So that's just sharing our actual stories, being real on stage, and being able to let other students know you are not alone. We were once in your shoes, and look at us on the other side of that.
Right. And I think part of it too is sharing that your pain can be turned into purpose. And so my pain in middle school and high school was I didn't fit in. I was a scrawny kid, so I would get bullied a lot for how I looked. I would get bullied a lot for how I talked. You know, I would always try to fit in. I would always try to make myself look cool, to the point where it cost me a whole lot. It cost me lying to my parents. It cost me lying to my teachers, lying to the people that were trying to look out for me, just so I could fit in with a particular group who didn't care about me much anyway. You know, and so not only that, but when you add on that, you know, Facebook and MySpace and all these different platforms started popping up in high school. Now I was not only worried about fitting in with the people from my school, but I was trying to fit in with people globally, because now it was all about how many friends do you have on MySpace? How many likes do you get on Facebook? So now I really was stressing above, man, how can I portray myself to be somebody that's important, rather than believing first that I'm already important. And so I would try to perceive to be important when I should really believe that I'm important, just because of the fact that I exist and I'm here for a reason.
So before we get to the parents thing, let's stay on this, what you're telling young people and stuff. How do they react? What's their reaction when they see this? Because I've done the same thing you have. Gotten up there and I've tried to teach them things about their self-image, to believe in themselves first, to have that belief, to find out who they are, to identify their own self. And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I really am with you. And then sometimes they give you that look like, man, you're wasting my freaking time. Get out of here. So what reaction are you seeing, and how are you able to move them to have that aha moment, which is what we're all looking for?
Yes, well, our presentations usually focus on the 3 C's, and that's to captivate the audience, to connect with the audience, and to challenge the audience. And so for the very first 5 minutes, we use a lot of technology and we use a lot of different things to help the audience be captivated. And so it's kind of like putting the medicine in the candy. And then from that, we move into the connection point, to where we understand what most of the students in that audience is going through. And then we pinpoint stories that we have personally to be able to draw them in. But then after that, we talk about how we made it out and how they can make it out too, which is the challenge piece. Because my whole thing is I can captivate you and entertain you. I can also empower you with my story. But what's the point if you don't leave with a personal challenge to better your life? And so each of our presentations has to include these 3 C's in order for it to be impactful.
And so how are they reacting? Well, we just did a presentation last week at a high school. It's actually an alternative school where these students have been kicked out of all public schools in the county, and this is like their last resort. And that was probably one of the first times we had several students crying after our presentation. We've done this presentation hundreds of times all over the country, but like it just hits them. And I think freedom looks differently for everybody. Sometimes students are like quiet, they're processing everything that we said, and they need to go back to class, go home and really think about the message. And so, but most students are like, man, you really spoke to me. You really spoke to my heart. That was me that you're talking about. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being vulnerable.
Yes. And I also, in their responses, for me, I like to view audiences as gardens. All right. And my responsibility right now in front of you is to sow some seeds. And I'm hoping that your teachers will also cultivate what I said. Your guardians, whoever is with you at home, will also cultivate what I said. Or maybe there was a word or two that you're going to look up online that will help cultivate and lead you in the right direction. And so even though some of them may eternally process and have a blank face, some of them may cry, some of them may laugh, and some of them may just sit there, I do believe that I'm a part of a long process of success that will be able to guide them in the right direction.
So let's talk to parents that are listening. So we get a lot of parents who are listening to our show or watching it on YouTube, and they're probably listening to you and go, hey, my kid needs that. But we know that everybody's not going to have access to speakers and trainers and coaches like that. So we got to equip the parents. So if you were to give a parent, and understanding, you don't have children of your own that are that age, in high school age, but what would you tell them to help them, to equip them, to empower the parent so that they can, help their young person thrive?
Yeah, I'll speak from personal experience. So we've had a chance to not only have a lot of conversations with teenagers on a one-on-one basis as case managers, but personally, I had a chance to have my younger sister-in-law at the time, who was 16, live with me and my wife to complete her high school courses. And so she was there from 16 to 18. And at first she started at an alternative school to get her credits back up. And then she went on to dual enroll and just became a success story from there. But in that process, I wasn't her dad, of course. I was her brother-in-law, but she was still under my roof. And so there were certain guidelines that she had to follow. But I would say the most important thing that I learned about that experience is that we have to connect before we project. And so before we project our ideas, our disciplines, our things that we believe students should be doing, we really have to connect with them to see who they are. And that's the thing that I find out with students is, as I would spend a lot more time investing in who they are and just getting to know them. And then when those little moments occur to where they're open for me to share something or they ask for feedback, that's when I would share. And so for parents, we have a lot of moments right now to be distracted. You have your phone, you have social media, you have podcasts, you have your own friends, you have your own life, you have work. There are so many things that are pulling at your attention. But I would hopefully ask that you can be able to spend maybe 30, 45 minutes dinner table conversations with your kids, because those little interactions in the car, on the way to school, those little interactions to where you just kind of sit there and just talk to them goes a long way.
Yeah.
And then also, too, I would say being able to share the pain behind your purpose, because all of us parents have a lot of stories and we have a lot of depth of things that we didn't get right in the beginning. We didn't get right then and now. And so just allowing our students to know, our kids to know that, hey, we're human and we're trying to figure this out as much as you are, but we are here to share and support your dream and vision.
Yeah, I also, speaking from personal experience, I had a young man live with me his senior year, so a whole teenager. And the one thing that pops up to my mind and piggyback off of Asley is, as parents, I wasn't really a parent, but I mean, I was his guardian at the time as he was completing high school, is I would tell a parent to heal, right? You got to heal yourself, because I found myself projecting my insecurities through him as I was. And like Asley, I'm glad Asley said the dinner table conversations and really asking the kid who they are, or speak to who they're becoming, because I was so stuck on the grades for this young man. He was on the verge of homelessness. And for me, his grades were going to be like the measurement to determining if I was doing a good job, if he was living in my house, right? And he was beyond the grades. Like, now he is a successful barber in town. But Jose, I was always just chasing academic success, and I was allowing the grades and awards, the accolades in school to validate who I was. So I was trying to do the same thing for this young man who did not really prioritize school as much, because he had a lot of other things going on in his life. But I would tell the parent, like, please heal. Like, go talk to somebody, whatever childhood trauma you went through, like, try to figure out how you can heal from that so that you don't project that on your kid.
And I would also recommend to, one of the things that was really helpful in our season, and even now as a young parent, I have two girls, one's 4 and one is 2. And even now, we're surrounded by other parents who have kids the same age. And I think a big thing for us is whenever I'm around other kids and their parents, and I'm like, okay, this is normal for a 4-year-old to act like this. So my household is not strange. Like, it helps bring things into normalcy, and it helps for us to be connected as we are navigating this journey of parenting. And so I would say, hopefully, that the same rule still applies for parents that are dealing with teenage children. You know, is it possible for you to connect with the friends of your children's parents or guardians to see what type of influences are around them, what type of mindsets and things that they're being exposed to, but also hopefully building a community of parents that are close to you to be able to navigate this together? Because the worst thing you can do is go through parenting alone.
Yeah.
It'll make you feel isolated, and that's something that shouldn't we're not meant to be isolated, especially in those moments.
I've been teaching a parenting class at my church for the last 2 years, and part of the whole reason that we did that was exactly what you just said, is we wanted to build a community
Yes.
of people to realize that it's okay if you're having some issues right now. That's pretty normal, because a lot of times they'll read these parenting books or hear these parenting seminars, and they're done sometimes by these parents that I'm like, you should just go home and get on your knees and thank God that he blessed you with a child that gave you no trouble, because that is not normal. You did not do anything. Yes. You know, I had some friends who their oldest son was perfect, came out just everything perfect, obedient, wonderful, ace. And then there was a big gap of like 8 to 10 years before they had the second child. And then there was another one right after that. And then the next two were like, okay, and they came to us and said, we thought we were really good parents, and kind of looked down our noses at everybody else. Now we realize we didn't do anything to parent that other one. He just really just was blessed to be good. So I'm glad to share. So audience, listen to what they said here. They said 3 things that you can do. They said, 1, you want to connect with your child. You want to make sure you're there connecting with them, being vulnerable, asking them questions, helping them to realize that you care about them, listening to them and caring. 2, to heal yourself, to make sure that you're not projecting onto them your own problems that you had as a childhood growing up. And that's good. And then the 3rd one is community. So if you're sitting there as a parent, did you hear what these guys said? Those are 3 good steps that you can go on that journey. So that's powerful.
Last cheat code, I would say, environments are really big. And so if I want to gain muscle or lose weight or whatever I want to do, I'm going to go to the gym because that's the best environment suited for my goal. And so same thing with being a parent. I think for a parent to grow in the areas you feel like you need to grow in and model certain behaviors for your child, putting yourself in those environments can also help shift how you feel about certain perspective. And also including your kid in that environment as well. If your kid is struggling academically, we don't have to say, hey, let's spend the day at home after school. No, let's go to the library together as a family. We're going to make this a part of the routine to where we go for 45 minutes or we go for an hour, just for them to be in that studious environment, for them to hopefully get that essence and drive to take books and reading and stuff seriously. And so, for those of you that want your kids to be outside, hey, after dinner, we're going to go walk around at the park for about 45 minutes to an hour. We're going to take a family walk. Just these small things to get students active and away from gadgets and away from devices can be something that really helps build a conversation, but also being in a different environment allows them to have different ways that they respond.
I love that. I love that completely. I feel like if our group, Generation Youth, have been interviewing you guys, 2 of the answers, the top 2 categories you talked about in your intros to this, and you talked about, trying to find out who you were, but you also talked about, and Jose, you even talked about this specifically, praying for a friend, is relationships. Building relationships is the 2nd biggest area that we found in our research based on the answers that they have. So let's speak to how we can help a young person build positive relationships, because it is so incredibly difficult for them to, and especially with these things right here. For those of you who are listening, I'm holding up a broken smartphone because I just realized it's got a broken glass on the back of it.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened. So it's with devices, with apps that they have now, they're not connecting like they once were. So how can you help them, or what are you doing to help them realize how to form these effective relationships? Because you got evidence of it in your lives.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say the number 1 thing is you got to be the friend that you're looking for. And so what I mean by that is a lot of times we set these expectations and these standards about, we want our best friend to be like this because this is what TV shows, or like I grew up watching a lot of Disney Channel when I could in middle school, and you would see these examples of what friendships are supposed to look like. And then in reality, there's conflict in friendship. There's like all these other things, right? And I would say, so number 1, you got to be the friend that you're looking for. Number 2, you got to learn how to manage healthy conflict with each other. because I think that that's always going to happen. There's always going to be conflict. It might, especially in middle school and high school, there's going to be some jealousy, maybe a little bit of envy. Maybe there's a third person joining the group, and just really learning how to communicate with each other so that you can resolve conflict in a healthy way. Because conflict's not bad. Like, I used to run away from anything negative, anything that was triggering, anything that involved conflict. But now I love it. I thrive off of it because we both grow.
Mm-hmm. And
if it's handled well, yeah.
Part of what I would add to what my brother said here is understanding that relationships have a big influence. In fact, I would argue that they're probably the real influencer above gadgets and devices and things of that nature. And research even shows this fact, right? Your friendships have the ability to help boost your mood, or has the ability to depress you and make you more anxious. And research also shows that only 6% of high school friendships survive a lifetime. All right. So when we put that into perspective, you have a high school student even a girl who may have 4 or 5, 6 or 7 good friends. By the time they graduate from high school, a lot of those relationships fizzle, but at the same time, from a parent perspective and from anybody that's working with students, whoever your student is friends with helps you gauge how their personality is at the moment. Because we are not able to choose our family, but we're able to choose our friends. And that's a core choice that your student is making in terms of their livelihood in their life. Because friends, hopefully, are somebody that they feel safe around, somebody that they feel like they can be themselves with, or somebody that feels like will protect them or just be next to them in times of trouble and in times of chaos. And so a good gauge of how your student is doing, sometimes not to look at the student, him or herself, but it's also to look at who's around them. Mm-hmm. And what type of people are they inviting to your house, right? What type of people are having text messages and conversations with them? Those are big indicators of the type of personality that your person actually likes or wants to be around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which says a whole lot about who they're becoming.
I like that word you use, fizzle.
Yeah, they fizzle.
That's a cool word.
They fizzle. And to be honest, parents and people listening here in this podcast, the same friends that introduced me to a youth group when I was in middle school was also the same friends that introduced me to partying and spending a lot of time with girls and getting involved in risky behaviors. And so I would also take an honest assessment. And if you see your kid changing in any behavior or just the way they're talking, the way they're dressing, let's pay attention to who they're around. And let's also invite some of those people close in so you can see who they are. And you can also maybe get introduced to their guardians and their parents to really have that 360 outlook of what your student is going through and experiencing with these people.
The late speaker and trainer Jen Rohn said that you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with.
Yes.
The most. So, and I've heard also, and I think Mr. Ziegler kind of kidded around this. It's not one of his known quotes, but, if you want to be an eagle, you can't hang with turkeys. So if you're going to fly with the eagles, you can't be on the ground with the turkeys. So that was in essence on this. So what are you guys doing? Tell me now, what is happening? How are you getting these messages out? What is going on, and how can our audience connect with you?
For sure. So right now, a couple of main mediums of contact. We have, of course, Instagram. We usually document all of our engagements on there. So speaking engagements, we usually do a recap video of the experience. And so you can follow along that way to see where we are at currently in the country. Another way people could connect with us is through noblesheep.com. That's our actual website. And that's the best way to contact us if you would like for us to come to your school, or even if you have a couple of questions about what we're seeing in our students as we're traveling across the nation. YouTube is also a platform that we use, and there's a lot of recap videos on there, as well as testimonials that can show you, whether it's high school, whether it's middle school, whether it's college, or even elementary school, the impact that we're having on these different contexts. And then also, too, Jose and I have built a course called www.noblesheepacademy.com, and it's a leadership course that's accessible right now, and it goes through, I believe, some of the big character education standards currently within the state of Florida, and also many states that have adopted the same thing. And so we talk about resiliency, we talk about goal setting, we talk about friendships, we talk about being able to manage conflict resolution, all the things that we don't get a chance to speak to in depth in our presentation. They are present in the course that students can access online at any time, whether it be on their phones or laptops or computers or things like that.
Yeah, so our mission at Noble Sheep, or just as speakers for us, is we inspire students to become great leaders. And how do we do that? We go to team conferences, we go to schools, we go to different summer camps, and we bring in a dynamic keynote presentation to that audience. So it could range from a group of 100 to we got to do something in Canada for 2,000 students. And so we bring one of our keynotes, and our signature keynote presentation is called the Power Up Experience. And as you can see in the back, we have a Power Up logo, and the whole Power Up experience is all about empowering those students to become great leaders. We understand that life is going to get tough, but you got two choices. Either you can power down or you can power up. And for Asley and I, we want to continuously live a life where we are constantly powering up every day, because as our world is evolving, you're evolving as well as a leader and as a young student.
And listen, audience, all those links that they just talked about are going to be in the show notes.
Woo!
So if you're listening, just go to your favorite app and you'll find them there. If you're watching, you know the deal. Look straight down and hit more, and you'll find all the links there. So audience, you can connect with that. Guys, thank you for the excitement that you have brought to our episode today, and the mission that you're doing. I mean, you're doing powerful work, and change. It's not an easy task to be called, and it is a calling, to work with you to kind of move them in the direction they need to know, to help let them see the opportunities before them and see the possibilities and help them find hope. That's not an easy task. So thank you so much for answering that call, because not many do.
And that's the main word that you just said is one of the reasons why we are here, is because there's hope. You know, when I listen to Brittany, when I listen to Aaron, when I listen to some of the speakers that you had on this podcast previously, there is hope that students are getting positive messages and it's spreading like wildfire. You know, when I'm walking around the city and I'm engaged with different parents, because I'm a volunteer for a youth group in town, and I'm talking to these parents, there's hope, because these parents are just as eager to want their child to be successful and significant. And so if you feel like you are alone, whether you're a parent or a student listening to this, and you feel like there's no way out and you don't know how you're going to make it through, understand that there is hope and you don't have to do it alone. Hence this podcast and all the other resources that is going to be provided to you today.
Well, thank you guys and thank you, audience, for sticking with us. Listen, if you are listening to me talk right now, you've been with us almost 35 minutes.
Yes.
So you must have found some value in what we're doing here, or you just left it on by accident. One of the two. We're going to say it's the first one. But and it's because it is the first one and you found that value, we ask for you to like and comment on this, but more importantly than like and comment on it, share it. Because there is someone who doesn't know about these guys, who doesn't know about this podcast, who doesn't know about this message, that needs desperately to hear it, that needs to connect with it. And if you're a parent or a teacher, and no matter where you are in the United States, but if you listen to it and what they're saying resonates with you, make sure that you find the right person at your school to connect with them, to possibly bring them in. Because I'd love to see their message spread, not only across Florida and the Southeast, but the nation as well. So audience, please do that for us. Noble Sheep guys, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you, audience, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of the Generation Youth Podcast.
Woo!